The silent boy. The rain was falling hard that evening when KeanuReeves and Sandra Bullock left the small charity event they had attended together in downtown Los Angeles. They were both soaked, their shoes heavy with water, but Keanu's calm smile never faded. He always believed that kindness was a language the world desperately needed to hear. The night felt quiet, almost too quiet, until they saw him. At the corner of a deserted street stood a boy, around 14, thin and pale, holding a cardboard sign. It simply said, "Help me." But what caught Keanu's attention wasn't the sign, it was the boy's silence. His lips didn't move, not a single word came out. Even when Sandra gently asked if he was lost, he just stared at her, his eyes empty, almost haunted. Keanu knelt down beside him. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "We're here to help." But the boy didn't speak. He just looked at Keanu's face, as if searching for something familiar. The rain poured harder, so Keanu took off his jacket and wrapped it around the boy's shoulders. The boy flinched but didn't pull away. That moment, a simple act of care, would start a journey neither of them could have imagined. They brought him to a nearby shelter, but the boy refused to give his name or eat. The staff said he might be mute, traumatized, or both. Yet when Keanu sat beside him and spoke about life, pain, and second chances, the boy listened deeply. He stared at Keanu like he had known him forever. Sandra whispered, "He trusts you. Maybe he sees something in you that we can't." The next morning, Keanu returned with food and clean clothes. The boy was gone. All that remained was Keanu's jacket, neatly folded, and a small note that said, "Thank you for remembering me." Keanu frowned. "Remembering?" he whispered. "I've never met him before." Weeks passed. The incident kept echoing in his mind. Who was that boy? Why did he write those words? One night, after a long shoot, Keanu found an envelope waiting at his doorstep. There was no name on it, only the same handwriting. "You knew my mother. She said you saved her once." Keanu's heart froze. He hadn't told anyone about a woman he had helped years ago. A woman trapped in an abusive relationship whom he had quietly supported until she escaped. He remembered her eyes, the same eyes as the boy. Could it be her son? He reached out to Sandra. Together, they decided to find him. What began as a simple act of kindness was turning into something deeper, a mystery wrapped in compassion and pain. Keanu didn't know it yet, but the truth about the silent teenager would soon break his heart and change millions of lives. Around the world. The search was about to begin, and every step would bring him closer to a truth he wasn't ready to face. The letter that changed everything. The next morning, Keanu sat at his kitchen table, staring at the letter again. The handwriting was shaky, almost as if written by trembling hands. "You knew my mother. She said you saved her once." It wasn't just a message. It was a voice from the past calling him back to a memory he thought was long gone, years ago. During one of his motorcycle rides through the outskirts of the city, he had stopped to help a woman crying by the roadside. Her name was Lily. She had bruises on her arms and fear in her eyes. He didn't ask questions. He just helped her, gave her some money, and drove her to a shelter. She thanked him, saying, "You don't know what you've done for me." Then she disappeared, leaving only a faint smile in his memory. And now, it seemed, her son had found him. Keanu showed the letter to Sandra. "It's him, Sandra," he said quietly. "The boy. I think he's Lily's son." Sandra frowned. "But if that's true, why didn't he just tell you?" Keanu shook his head. "Maybe he can't, or maybe he's afraid." They decided to visit the shelter where Lily once stayed. The manager recognized her name immediately. "Yes," she said softly, "Lily Hart. She was here about 15 years ago. Kind woman. She left suddenly one night, said she was starting over with her son." "Do you know what happened to her?" Keanu asked. The woman sighed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves. She passed away 5 years ago. Cancer. Her son was just a child back then." The silence that followed was heavy. Keanu's heart ached as if a weight had been placed upon it. Sandra gently placed her hand on his arm. "Then that boy. He's alone now." Keanu nodded. "And he's reaching out. Maybe I'm all he has left." They began searching for any trace of the boy through social services, local police, hospitals, but every lead went cold. Then, one night, Keanu received a message on his phone. It was from an unknown number. "Please stop looking for me. It's safer that way." The message was followed by a photo. A blurry image of the boy standing near an old bridge. Keanu recognized it instantly. It was the same bridge where he had once filmed a movie scene about loss and redemption. A coincidence? Or something more? The next day, they drove to the bridge. The place was empty, the air cold and still. But on the railing, tied with a piece of string, was another note. "She said you'd understand. She said you'd find me when I'm ready." Keanu clenched the note in his hand. "He's watching," he murmured. "He's scared, but he wants to be found." Sandra looked at him, tears in her eyes. Maybe he doesn't need a hero, Keanu. Maybe he just needs someone who won't give up on him. They decided not to report anything. No police, no publicity. This wasn't a story for the world to chase. This was personal. Keanu began leaving food near the bridge, books, and notes that said simple things like "You're not alone" and "You are safe." Weeks passed, and slowly, the boy started leaving things in return. A drawing of a man and a motorcycle. A photo of a woman who looked just like Lily, and once, a small bracelet made of red thread. Keanu finally whispered one night, "I'm not leaving until I see you again." He didn't know it yet, but soon the boy would reveal the truth behind his silence, and when he did, the world would see a side of Keanu Reeves no camera had ever captured. The bridge of Memoria's sun was setting when Keanu returned to the bridge. For the 13th night in a row, the air smelled of rain, and the city lights shimmered in the water below. He had left another small note under the railing that morning. "I'm here. You don't need to be afraid." But this time, something was different. When he arrived, there was a folded piece of paper waiting for him. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. "You remind me of her. The way you talk. The way you wait." Beneath the words was a tiny sketch. A woman with long hair sitting on a motorcycle, smiling. It was Lily. Keanu knew it immediately. His heart tightened as he stared at the drawing. The boy wasn't just remembering her. He was reliving her. Sandra arrived minutes later, holding 2 cups of coffee. She saw the note in his hand and whispered, "He's reaching out, Keanu. He's finally trusting you." Keanu nodded slowly. "But why from a distance? What is he afraid of?" Sandra's voice softened. "Maybe he blames himself for something he couldn't control." That night, Keanu decided to stay longer. The city grew quiet, and the sound of passing cars faded. Then he heard footsteps, small, hesitant ones. He turned slowly, not wanting to scare whoever it was. And there he was, the boy, standing in the shadows, clutching Keanu's old jacket. Keanu smiled gently. "Hey," he said, "I'm glad you came back." The boy looked at him but said nothing. His eyes were red, as if from crying. "You don't have to talk," Keanu continued. "I just want you to know that you're safe with me." The boy hesitated, then stepped closer and placed a photo in Keanu's hand before running away into the night. Keanu looked down. It was a picture of Lily, taken years ago, holding a newborn baby. On the back were 5 words. "His name is Ethan Reeves." Keanu froze. "Reeves?" He whispered the name again, disbelief and confusion mixing in his voice. "No, that can't be." Sandra gasped when she read it. "Keanu, what if?" He interrupted softly. "No, Lily and I, we were never." He paused, his throat tightening. "But she was in trouble when I met her. Maybe she named him after me." The truth hung between them like fog. Keanu felt both honored and broken. Somewhere inside, guilt began to form. Guilt for not finding her sooner, for not knowing what happened after he helped her that night. Over the next few days, Keanu tried to contact child services again, this time using the photo. He discovered that Ethan had been in and out of foster care since his mother's death. He had no relatives, no stable home. He had run away multiple times, each time leaving behind the same message, "Don't look for me." He doesn't trust anyone, Keanu told Sandra one night. He thinks the world forgets people like him. "Then remind him that you didn't," she said, "that you never will." So Keanu kept returning to the bridge, leaving small lights along the path, books with handwritten notes, and tiny pieces of warmth where darkness once lived. Slowly, the boy began to appear again, always silent, always distant, but closer than before. Then, one night, as thunder rolled in the distance, Ethan finally spoke. Just one sentence. His voice was hoarse, quiet, almost afraid. "She told me you were my father." Keanu's breath caught in his chest. He stared at the boy, unable to move, unable to speak. The world seemed to pause between two heartbeats, one belonging to a man who had spent his life helping strangers, and one to a boy who had spent his life searching for family. The truth and the rain came down harder that night as Keanu stood frozen by the bridge. The boy's words echoed in his mind again and again. "She told me you were my father." Everything around him blurred, the cars, the lights, even the thunder. Only the boy's trembling voice remained. Keanu took a slow step forward, his heart racing. "Ethan," he whispered, "come here." But the boy shook his head, gripping the edge of the railing. "She said you didn't want us. She said you left." The words cut deeper than any wound. Keanu's throat tightened. "No," he said softly, "that's not true. I never even knew she had a child. I swear to you, if I had known, I would have been there." Ethan's eyes filled with tears, but he said nothing. Keanu didn't move closer, afraid to scare him away. Instead, he took off his jacket again, the same one he had once given the boy, and placed it on the ground between them. "You don't have to believe me right now," he said, his voice steady. "But I'm not leaving you again." Ethan turned away, disappearing into the rain. Keanu stood there until the night turned to dawn. When he finally left, he found something under the jacket, another note. "She told me you'd say that." The next morning, Sandra met him at a small cafe. She could see the exhaustion in his eyes. "You can't carry the guilt of a past you didn't create," she said gently. Keanu rubbed his temples. "But what if she really believed I abandoned them? What if something happened that made her think I didn't care?" Sandra reached across the table. "Then find the truth. Not for you, for him." They began digging into Lily's past, looking for anyone who might have known her. Days turned into weeks until they found an old hospital record. Lily Hart, diagnosis, terminal cancer. Guardian listed, Ethan Reeves, minor. Emergency contact, none. But there was one last note in her file, written in her handwriting. "If anyone finds my son, tell him his father was kind. He saved my life once." Keanu stared at the note for a long time, his eyes burning. "She never blamed me," he whispered. "Someone else told him those lies." "Who?" Sandra asked quietly. The answer came sooner than expected. Later that night, a social worker called. "Mr. Reeves, Ethan's been seen again. He's with his uncle, or at least, that's what the man claims. Name's Martin Hart." Keanu's heart sank. Martin, Lily's brother. He remembered meeting him once at the shelter years ago. A man with a short temper and a long history of bad choices. They found the address in a poor part of town. The house was small, falling apart, but the lights were on. Keanu and Sandra approached carefully. Through the window, they saw Ethan sitting in a chair, arms crossed. While Martin shouted on the phone, Keanu knocked. The shouting stopped. The door opened slowly. Martin's eyes widened when he saw Keanu. "You," he growled. "You think you can just show up after all these years?" Keanu didn't raise his voice. "I'm here for Ethan. He's my nephew," Martin snapped. "You don't get to take him away." Before Keanu could reply, Ethan stood behind him. "Stop lying," he said quietly. "You said he didn't care. You said he left her. But she wrote it down. She said he saved her." Martin froze. For the first time, he had nothing to say. Keanu took a careful step forward. "You don't need to fight anymore, Ethan. You're not alone." The boy looked at him, eyes trembling with tears. "But where do I belong?" Keanu smiled softly. "Right here, with people who see you, not what's missing." That night, Keanu called the social worker. "I'll take responsibility for him," he said simply. "Whatever it takes." The House of Quiet Beginnings next few weeks passed slowly, filled with forms, calls, and quiet waiting. Keanu kept his promise. He didn't leave. He met with the social worker every morning, learning what it meant to become a legal guardian. He visited Ethan often, sitting beside him in silence, talking only when the boy was ready. Sometimes they said nothing at all, just shared the same quiet air that didn't need words to understand. Sandra often joined them, bringing food or old photos to break the tension. She smiled at Ethan one afternoon and said, Your mom loved sunflowers, didn't she?" The boy froze for a second, then nodded. It was the first time he had smiled, a small, uncertain smile. But it was enough to make Keanu's heart ache. At night, Keanu would replay everything in his mind: the bridge, the letters, the truth in the rain. It felt unreal. A man who had lived half his life in solitude was now learning what it meant to be needed again. One evening, after another long day of paperwork, he returned home to find Ethan sitting on the front steps of his house, soaked from the rain, holding a small backpack. The boy looked up and said softly, "They said I could stay for a few days. If that's okay." Keanu felt something in him break and rebuild all at once. "It's more than okay," he said. "Come in." The house was quiet, filled with the scent of coffee and pine. Ethan walked through the living room, touching things carefully: a guitar, a bookshelf, a framed picture of a younger Keanu and Sandra on a film set. "You live alone?" Ethan asked. Keanu nodded. For a long time, the boy glanced around again. "It doesn't feel empty." Keanu smiled. "Maybe it was waiting for you." In the following days, they began sharing small routines: breakfast at the same table, evening walks with no fixed destination. Keanu showed him how to fix an old motorcycle, and Ethan, for the first time, laughed when grease smudged his face. "You look like a mechanic," Keanu said, chuckling softly. "And you look like someone who needed one," Ethan replied. That small spark of humor melted the distance that had lingered between them. Still, the nights weren't easy. Ethan sometimes woke up from nightmares, calling out for his mother. Keanu would sit by his side, holding a cup of warm milk, whispering stories about Lily, the courage she had, the way she smiled, the way she once said, "Kindness can heal even what love cannot." One night, Ethan asked, "Did you really save her?" Keanu took a deep breath. "I didn't save her, Ethan. She saved herself. I just helped her find the road." The boy nodded slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. "Then maybe you can help me find mine." Keanu's throat tightened. "We'll find it together." As the days passed, the quiet bond between them grew stronger. But one evening, while going through old letters and pictures in a small wooden box, Ethan found a folded envelope addressed to KeanuReeves. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a note written in Lily's handwriting. "If you ever find this, it means you met him. He's everything good I ever had. Tell him not to be afraid to love again. Tell him Ethan will need someone who believes in second chances." Tears fell silently from Keanu's eyes as he read. Ethan stood beside him, unsure of what to say. Keanu folded the letter gently and said, "She knew we'd meet again. Maybe this was always meant to happen." Ethan looked up at him and whispered, "Maybe she just wanted you to have a son." Keanu reached out and pulled him into a quiet embrace, rain tapping gently on the window outside. The pain of loss didn't vanish, but something new began, a peace neither of them had known before. The voice of forever months passed, and the house that once echoed with silence began to fill with small, ordinary sounds. The hum of morning coffee, the clatter of dishes, the low murmur of music as Keanu tuned his old guitar, the rhythm of two lives learning to breathe in the same space. Ethan was still quiet, but his silence no longer felt heavy. He had begun drawing again, scenes of bridges, motorcycles, and stars, leaving them scattered around the house like secret messages of healing. One morning, Keanu found a new sketch on his desk. It showed two figures sitting on a bridge railing, one tall and one small, both watching the sunrise. Beneath it were four words written carefully: "Thank you for staying." Keanu smiled softly, tracing the pencil lines with his fingers. "You're welcome," he whispered. Later that day, Sandra came by for dinner. She looked around the house, now alive with warmth, and grinned. "You've changed, Keanu," she said. He chuckled. "Maybe I just remembered who I used to be." She leaned closer. "No, you became who you were always meant to be." After dinner, Ethan brought out something he had kept hidden for weeks, a small notebook filled with letters addressed to his mother. He read one aloud, his voice trembling. "Dear Mom, I found him. He's not like you said. He's better. He doesn't talk much either, but when he does, it makes things feel safe." Keanu's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't interrupt. Ethan continued, "I thought being alone made me strong, But he showed me that being loved doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. The room fell silent except for the sound of rain outside, soft and steady. Like applause from the sky. Keanu reached over and squeezed the boy's shoulder. You made her proud, Ethan. She'd be smiling right now. Ethan looked up. Do you think she can see us? Keanu nodded. I don't think love ever disappears. It just changes form, like light after sunset. That night, they drove together to the bridge, the place where everything began. The city lights shimmered below, and the wind carried the scent of rain and hope. Ethan placed a single sunflower on the railing. For her, he said quietly. Keanu stood beside him, his voice low and steady. For her, and for what she left behind. They stood in silence for a long time, the world fading around them until only the moment remained. Then Ethan turned to him and asked, Can I call you Dad? Keanu's breath caught. No movie, no fame, no applause could ever match that moment. He smiled, tears falling freely, and whispered, You already do, as they walked back to the car. The clouds broke open, revealing a pale moon. The light fell softly across their faces, two souls bound not by blood, but by the quiet, steady miracle of love that had refused to give up. In the weeks that followed, Keanu adopted Ethan officially. Reporters heard rumors, but he never confirmed anything. He didn't need the world to know. He just needed the boy to believe he was safe. Every morning they shared coffee and laughter, building a life made not of perfection, but of patience and peace. One day, during an interview, a journalist asked Keanu about kindness and why he still gave so much. He smiled and said, Because once, a silent boy reminded me that sometimes the people you save are the ones who save you back. And somewhere in the crowd, watching from the shadows, Ethan smiled too, no longer silent, no longer lost, finally home.